guys. We are back, baby. We are fucking back. We're back. Yeah. Classic. We are back. That's we right. Are back.
Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC 249, Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. And it is good to be back. We are finally back with some UFC. I feel like I haven't done these in forever. Doing some stuff on Wagertalk, but it has been quite some time, I feel like, doing a prediction show, breaking down fights, so it's definitely good to be back. We've got a lot to talk about regarding this event. We've got 3 events coming up, upcoming week there, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to kind of work through all that. Definitely, again, we've got right now the picks are up right now on Wagertalk. I have 4 plays up for $12. Check it out if you're interested in that. We'll have 2 free plays that we'll be talking about here today. And then looking forward, Wednesday, definitely like 2 plays already on there, trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing with those, and then I have to start diving into that last card for that week. So getting through this week, a lot of action going on overall, but I also do want to remind you that tomorrow we do have the giveaway. It already is announced, so check out my Twitter, at Kyle Anthony UFC. We're doing a giveaway there. Check it out. More details tomorrow with my show with Minty tomorrow, so we'll be getting into more of that, and then we'll be announcing the winner probably, I guess, on Sunday after the event. You're going to be picking some prop bets. You're going to be picking some winners. Whoever has the most will be getting a year subscription to my picks, valued at $800. It will be free for you if you do win. So some exciting news, some exciting stuff, but let's get into why we are here. And it is basically, we're going to talk some UFC. We're going to have 2 plays here we're going to get into, so we might as well get into it right away. So the first play we're going to be talking about is between Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. Main event of the evening, an exciting fight, and this is one that I definitely spent a lot of time on. More reason being is because it was scheduled and then it went away and then we weren't sure what was going to be happening, but I was still kind of diving into it as well because I was hoping it was going to happen, and now it is. So I really feel like I got a good read on this fight. Did a lot of research on it, so we'll kind of get into it. Right now you got the current line. You've got Tony Ferguson is a favorite at minus, roughly, again, depending what book you're at, minus 178, and you've got Justin Gaethje is roughly around a plus 150. So this fight here, and again, what we like to do for the main events and for my main free plays is break down the fight, really dive into some past fights, dive into stylistic matchups. Does all of this really make sense to place a bet? Diving into 3 past fights, overlooking everything, and then putting it together at the end, and then giving you my play. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to get into Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson is 25-3. Again, his line is minus 178. 3 fights ago, he fought Kevin Lee. Now, this was an interesting fight here, more due to the fact that these 2 were really looking to fight, and plus Kevin Lee at that time was talking big that he was going to be able to be the guy that could take out Khabib. So there was a lot of hype behind this fight overall. But going into this fight, I think a big caveat to this is the fact that Kevin Lee had staph infection. Now, we know what that does. It's, he's taking antibiotics. It's going to drain your body. It's going to make you tired. There's a lot of factors to that. I personally have never had that, but this is what they were saying that it does to the body when you're out there. Of course, when you're training, you're doing a high impact kind of sport that it comes to the UFC. Very interesting to see how that really transpires in the cage. So when this fight really took place, very interesting early that in that first round, you did see Kevin Lee look great. I mean, Kevin Lee was landing a lot of shots. And the thing about Kevin Lee is, yes, he's a wrestler, but his striking has definitely started to pick up a little bit, getting a little bit more crisper, very good jab, very long with his strikes. And then he's able to try to mix up those takedowns. Obviously, against somebody like Ferguson, who's very good off of his back, has a very aggressive guard, is going to be a kind of guy that you're not sure where you really want to play that. But Kevin Lee looked really good in that first round. He landed some nice shots. He actually dropped Ferguson in that first round, which is something that you do see a little bit throughout these 3 fights, which we'll get into. And I thought he fought very well in that first round. Very close. I would edge it a little bit to Kevin Lee, but it was a very close round. Into that second round, was, again, a very close round, but you did see that both of them, and I would definitely say both, and this is, again, I feel like something that kind of goes through, that they both actually look kind of tired very early in that fight. Now, they're both high-volume guys. You've got Ferguson, high-volume kind of guy, but I thought that early in that fight, which is a guy in a 5-round fight, I thought that he looked a little bit tired getting into that second round. Again, it was a very close round, I thought, in that second round, but in that third round, really, Kevin Lee was drained. I mean, he did not look himself. We know that already he's the kind of guy that definitely is one that is going to kind of tire out later into fights. But in that third round, Kevin Lee again got some takedowns, had top control, looked pretty good in certain spots. But once he got that top control, it looked like he really couldn't do anything. And then that's where Ferguson, the aggressive guard that he has, was able to get that finish. So this fight here, going into a fight with Gaethje, a little bit hard to pick apart just because they're very different stylistic matchups. You've got somebody like Kevin Lee, more of a wrestler, kind of thing, where you've got somebody like Gaethje, who is definitely a little bit different when it comes to stylistic matchups. Then you have 2 fights ago, he fought Anthony Pettis. So in this fight with Anthony Pettis, now you've got him where he's coming back from the knee injuries, and you've got the surgeries and all these other things. And the thing in this fight here, the first round was the first strike that Anthony Pettis threw, landed a leg kick, and right away instantly you saw that Ferguson was hurt. I mean, it was one leg kick that hurt Ferguson, and then you could already see him, although Ferguson does it, he goes orthodox, he kind of bounces around from different some southpaw orthodox, and goes back and forth very smoothly with his transitions from different sides, the way that he fights. But that strike hurt, and he quickly changed it and was limping quickly. That's, I think, a little bit of a red flag to me that somebody like Gaethje, who does have probably the best leg kicks in the UFC, is going to be facing somebody like Ferguson that may have an issue. Not may. He does have an issue with his knees. He had the ligaments were torn completely off of the bone. A very, very serious injury he was able to come back from. That being said, I thought that actually pushing through that, Ferguson then did push through. The first round looked a little iffy, but after that, it was really Ferguson. I mean, that forward pressure that he has throughout a fight is really impressive, just the way that he moves forward. And somebody like Pettis, who is very athletic, has really dynamic striking, was not comfortable at all. He could not get Ferguson's forward pressure, walking him down throughout the fight, and he just couldn't really set his feet, look to fire. And again, Pettis is very creative in his striking, has a great technique, but he just could not find a good spot, and Ferguson was able to capitalize on that. Once he got close, there was really no opportunities for Pettis to throw any of those hard leg kicks, utilized most of his weapons, and time after time he kept stepping it down, ended up getting dropped. Now that's again another thing there. You see that Pettis dropped Ferguson. Ferguson looked really hurt at that point. It almost looked like the fight was over. At that point, it almost looked like the fight was over. And then Ferguson, he is just, again, he's a warrior. He's a guy that you're really going to have to put away to actually end the fight. And you saw he was able to get out of it and, again, find a way to win. And that's what Ferguson does. He's definitely a kind of guy that's able to go out there, even in bad situations, make, very creative. Even the way he rolled out of being hurt was a way that you really wouldn't see many people do. I mean, he was hurt, he forward rolled, and then kind of got out of danger a little bit, but then was able to set himself up to kind of relax for a minute, get out of danger. Crazy the way that he is overall, but in that fight there, you did see that it was a doctor stoppage. Pettis broke his hand, ended up ending the fight, so Ferguson does get that victory. Then most recently, he went up against Donald Cerrone, and this was a fight here where, again, kind of the same thing. Cerrone, everyone's got very different kind of feeling towards him at this point in his career, where some people are saying he's done. Some people say against the Conor fight, was it thrown? A lot of different situations there. I don't believe that at all. But, is he at the twilight of his career? Absolutely. But in this fight here, first round, I thought that the first round looked pretty good. I thought that, they both fought. It was very close. Stylistically matchups, I thought it was, they were both outside striking. I thought that Cowboy striking overall looked very sloppy. I did not like the way that he was kind of standing. He had a wide guard. He was really allowing a lot of the shots to be absorbed. Didn't really like the way he was fighting overall, but then you take a look in that fight, gets hurt. They ended up stopping the fight. Great shots by Ferguson to put that fight away. Ended up being another doctor stoppage. Then we'll quickly go into, I know I talk about these fights a little bit longer than I want to every time, but then you've got you have Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is 21-2, plus 150 is the line on him right now. So these 3 fights, we're going to go over for him. 3 fights ago, he fought James Vick. James Vick is known as, a glass jaw. I mean, there is just nothing, no other way about that. He's the kind of guy, you tap his jaw, he goes down. He has just been a kind of guy that can't get away from that, leaves his head up high. Guy like Gaethje came in there, that forward pressure. Again, somebody like Vick likes to fight long, likes to use his jab. He's got boxing background. And Gaethje just bum rushed him. Gaethje basically just brawled, muscled him to get inside. Whole time it didn't look like Vick looked like he wanted to be in there because he was landing the leg kicks. He was very confused on where the strikes were coming from. Couldn't really pick up the combinations. Landed the big shot. Gaethje puts him away in the first round. That was a knockout for Justin Gaethje in that first round. 2 fights ago, he fought Edson Barboza. This was a fight that I thought was tremendous. I was actually at this fight, and this was a fight where I was leaning Barboza, to be honest with you. I was saying, you know what? This is a fight of leg kickers, and probably the best kickboxer in the UFC, or at least up there, is Edson Barboza. And this was a fight that made me really high on Gaethje, just overall. I mean, yes, he's always been a great fighter, but this really showed how he's involved and how he's really continued to make himself better and not be a kind of guy that sits, which he does still, but just take punches and move forward. He's kind of more being methodical about his striking. And in this fight here against Barboza, it was another quick fight. They went in there, they were both trading leg kicks, and again, the pressure from Gaethje is really tough. And same thing again where Barboza could not really set himself. He was really walking, trying to strike off of his back foot. Barboza's not comfortable with that, and it's kind of just something that you've seen with him throughout his career. And in this spot here, again, he was really getting hit with the leg kicks, started worrying about the leg kicks, and that's where he dropped his guard. Gaethje throws a big bomb, drops him, fight ends again in the first round. That was another knockout victory for Justin Gaethje. And then you've got, most recently, he fought Donald Cerrone. This was another fight here where, Cerrone, it doesn't help him by any means, where he keeps getting knocked out or beaten up or that kind of thing. But there's another fight here against Donald Cerrone that, Gaethje again goes in forward, gets that pressure, the way that he mixes it up, and people are so worried about those leg kicks. It's just crazy how it changes everybody's defense and offense when they fight Gaethje. So you did see that Justin Gaethje gets the knockout victory in the first round. So with that all being said, and taking a look at these 2 fighters, now of course you've got Ferguson. The unorthodox style that he has is something that is just impossible to mimic. When you're sparring against anybody, it's impossible to really just tailor your sparring partner to fight like Tony Ferguson. It's just almost impossible, just the way that he moves. And pretty much you see in all fights, he does things differently. The way that he moves around and the way that he's really throwing his combinations, how he kind of attacks your leg, attacks your body, really mixes it up. So that's one thing that always sticks in everybody's mind, is that part of it. Of course, the 12-fight win streak is also going to be a part of this as well. How well-rounded he is. He's great off of his back. He's got the striking credentials standing, uses these elbows unlike many other people. I mean, you got Paul Felder, who's great, inside the clinch, tie clinch, using those elbows, shredding up his opponents. That's something that he's done. And the other side, you've got Gaethje, power. He's got the wrestling background, does not use it ever. I still don't understand that, but he is knocking people out in the first round, so he starts to really kind of gauge himself towards that. The one thing now I think is the important part of this fight is that they're both pressure fighters. They're both going to move forward. So that's going to be a big part in who's going to be taking the step back. And that's going to probably be someone who's going to really dictate the pace of this fight. And you see a lot of the times when Ferguson's fighting, he's walking a guy down. When Gaethje's fighting, he's walking a guy down. Now, the difference that I see here between these 2 fighters is how Ferguson really walks opponents down, and when somebody is actually walking him down, what he does. And the one thing that you've seen over and over, and even diving through all these fights, is Tony Ferguson is absolutely very hittable. I mean, you have seen many times that guys with lesser striking, lesser power than Gaethje have dropped have dropped Ferguson, and in certain spots really made it difficult for him. And that's something, and also the fact is how he leaves his chin up. It's almost a little bit like the way that James Vick holds his chin up, where he's really leaning it back. Instead of tucking it behind his shoulder, tucking it behind his hands, he really leaves that head hanging up. And those are spots where I think Gaethje is gonna find success. And then again, you've got the red flag a little bit where you've got the situation where his knees, and he's had very, very serious surgery. You've got the best leg kicker in the division, or in the UFC. Those are things I think that mixing that, as well as the lackadaisical style of defense that Ferguson has. Ferguson wants to be very creative. He wants to always really kind of pull out some crazy moves. Those are moves that have really left him exposed for certain fighters and has hurt him in certain spots. A guy like Gaethje, where I think Gaethje, the thing with him though, is they're both known as reckless kind of fighters. But Gaethje has really changed himself a lot, I believe. And you've seen it, where he's not out there just, let's just stand toe-to-toe. He's willing to, and that's always the pressure is going to be a big part of this, walking the fighter down. But he's just not standing there and throwing haymakers. And I think honing that into a fight like this, where he's going to have opportunities to land big shots, really starts to push me towards Justin Gaethje in this fight. At the plus money is really great. You've got a plus 150 here on him. There's just a lot of things that I like about Justin Gaethje. Now, the 3 weeks ago before, some people were really on Ferguson. I was still on Gaethje. I really still like Gaethje. Even at that point, I was a little worried about it, saying, you know what, 3 weeks, I still love the stylistic matchup. I still love the plus money on it. I think this is a great spot. Gaining these 3 weeks, I think, is enormous. And then on the other side of it, you've got Ferguson. Ferguson actually ended up making weight 3 weeks ago. Now, I've never had to do that before, but doing that and draining your body, judging from what everybody says in mixed martial arts, in the UFC, people who have done it, saying that's probably the worst part of being a UFC fighter, is making weight. He did it. And he did it, which is very impressive, he did it, but to drain your body at that point, and then now to build it back up, where you've got somebody like Gaethje who is literally just building himself up at that point and preparing himself for the weight cut that's going to be coming this week. That, to me, is another red flag. So there's so many red flags here against Ferguson. Ferguson is a great fighter. I'm not saying he's some bum by any means, but I love the plus money here on Justin Gaethje. I think he goes out there. I think he puts an impressive showing out there, gets the win. So I am betting Justin Gaethje at plus 150 as my first free play. The next one we're going to talk about is Calvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stephens. Now, this fight here, you've got Kattar minus 250. You've got Jeremy Stephens at plus 210, somewhere around there. I'm not going to dive into this as much. I talked a little bit longer than I wanted to in that first one, but we'll get into it. I'm going to touch on a couple different spots here in each of these fighters, and we're going to take a look at it overall. So, first thing here, I guess we're really going to talk about is Calvin Kattar. Now Kattar, the thing about him is, he's definitely evolved. He's definitely stepped up his striking. And that was a guy, when I was going back and rewatching tape on him, was the big thing on him was that, 3 fights ago, he fought Chris Fishgold. And in that fight, Chris Fishgold is a wild fighter. He's a sloppy kind of fighter. I'm not very high on him at all. And he's a guy that's willing to kind of just move forward, throw haymakers, throw big hooks. And in that fight, you really saw, although it was a quick fight, you really saw that Kattar was not really comfortable with that. He kind of took him out of his game a little bit. And Kattar's the kind of guy, got a great jab, stands outside, really sets everything up with his jab. He likes to throw a double jab sometimes, move outside, then work back inside, use his footwork to kind of move around the cage a little bit. And that's what he was doing. And here, Fishgold was kind of putting him out of, a little bit out of his rhythm. Where kind of a wild man moving forward. Although Kattar did get that knockout in that first round, and it was a clipping. We did clip him, dropped him. But up until that point, I really was liking what was happening for Fishgold. He was actually kind of implementing a nice game plan by just putting pressure on a guy that wants a little bit of space. That, yes, it's not that he can't handle it, Kattar, but he wants a little bit of that space to work that jab. He utilizes it very well. In that fight there, he did get the knockout victory, but I thought the pressure was something that did look to actually something that could be exposed. Then you've got the fight after that was against Ricardo Lamas, and this was a fight here that I thought is where the big step up from Kattar was. I thought that Kattar that fought Fishgold compared to Kattar that fought Lamas were two different people. I mean, when I went there to rewatch it, I was really impressed by how much he really did step up in such a short time. You know, his jab was really good. He really stood from the outside. He had great footwork, and even the way that Lamas was trying to implement the game plan, that basically the same game plan. He was trying to just walk him down, just get forward, get in his face, force him to not be able to stand outside, and because again, Kattar has great boxing. So that's what Lamas was trying to do. And Lamas was actually finding some success in that round. He was actually moving forward, finding some success. And as soon as Kattar landed one leg kick, which really must have been on a perfect spot, because once that happened, Lamas started backpedaling, had to really disband from his game plan. That's when Kattar started landing. It looked like Lamas was really hurt and ended up getting the victory there. But again, the game plan I thought was right, but Kattar really was able to come through again and have a nice performance. And then also fought Zabit. That was a pretty good fight as well. I'm not going to dive into that one, but a very close fight where Kattar did not get that victory. Over to Jeremy Stephens really quick. He fought Zabit in a close fight as well, lost the decision. Not going to get into that. The one I do want to get into was Yair Rodriguez. When Jeremy Stephens fought Yair Rodriguez, this was a fight where, you had the first one was the eye poke. Kind of crazy what happened there, and that fight didn't happen. So the second one, going into that, I thought this was a very interesting fight just because of the fact that, Yair is dynamic, and you've got Zabit, very dynamic fighters, very similar in many ways, just the way that they fight, just the way that they utilize their kicks, they really set up a lot with their kicks, and somebody like Kattar is not going to be as dynamic. Great boxing, not as dynamic, and I thought these were fights that are stylistically very bad for Stephens. Stephens is a big boxer, a brawler, and he's not very technical, and he's never changed that. And that's definitely a problem and definitely something that I don't like, but he's never changed that. We've got somebody like Kattar, you see him evolve. And which, again, you look at the lines, it does, you've got the big favorite here at minus 250, plus 210. But in that fight with Yair, he really picked him apart from the outside. He was able to land some big shots. You could tell that Stephens really wasn't able to pick up those leg kicks at all, pick up any of the creative shots that Yair has, because really both Zabit and Yair have those just spin kicks and these kind of, really high-level, flashy kind of shots. Ended up losing that fight also. But with that being said, I think that this line here is off to me. I don't believe that you got Jeremy Stephens at over plus 200. I think it's pretty high. I've seen it even up to plus 230 in certain books. I think that's pretty high, and I think that's giving a lot of too much respect for Kattar. Now, I think Kattar, again, elevating, doing very well. I like what I'm seeing there, but I think this line should be a lot closer, and to me, this is more of a value play. This isn't one that I'm saying I'm hammering this. I'm not, again, that's the 4 plays that I got on Wagertalk, but these, this is a play here where I'm sprinkling this in a parlay. I think there's definitely opportunity here where Stephens can get the job done. I think at a plus odds of this nature, where you're taking a look at a guy like Stephens who moves forward, who does do exactly what Kattar is not as comfortable with. And again, a great jab puncher, somebody that likes to stand on the outside and jab and work you, the best thing you could do is shorten the distance, not allow him to utilize that jab. And what that's going to do is that's going to take him out of his comfort zone, and then you keep walking him down. That's where Stephens can find some success. Now, it's easier said than done, of course, because Kattar is going to be very tough to get inside, but you've seen Lamas do it. You've seen Fishgold do it. And yes, they both lost. Yes, they both lost. But Stephens, if he's able to really weather some of those shots and get inside, it's going to be a lot closer than what this line is indicating. And that's why I feel that this is a nice value play here. He's fought very high-level kickboxers. You've got, again, Zabit and Yair are nowhere near the overall striking, in my opinion, of Kattar. Kattar is the boxer. Kattar is the kind of guy that's just going to be standing and boxing. That kind of fits a little bit more into what Jeremy Stephens does. So for me here, as another free play, a nice value play here for me, I'm going to be sprinkling in some parlays. I am going to be putting Jeremy Stephens in there as another free play at plus 210. So those are my 2 free plays. We've got 2 dogs on this one here. We've got Justin Gaethje at plus 150 to defeat Tony Ferguson, and we've got Jeremy Stephens at +210 to defeat Calvin Kattar. Those are the 2 free plays. We'll have more free plays tomorrow, different plays I'm going to be talking about, getting more into some other things with Minty, talking about the, our giveaway, talking about some other aspects of what we're going to see on Saturday night. So there you have it. Definitely follow me on Twitter at Kyle Anthony UFC. Appreciate everybody, the support. It's good to be back again. And normally I like to do my prediction. My bet review shows on Sunday. Trying to figure all that out because I kind of want to spend time capping the next few fights that are going to be coming up. So we'll see how that goes. Definitely will have another prediction show out. We'll continue to do the bet reviews and everything else as we move forward through everything. UFC is back. We're on the spotlight, so let's make some money. This is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you next time.